Welcome to Spectacle on Television Nigeria. I am your host, Daniel Atai. Happy anniversary to all Nigerians all over the world from us in TVN. It is Freedom at 59 to the Giant of Africa. Today's spectacle program is open for audience to suggest ways we can better our nation as a people. I am your host, Daniel Atai, and the numbers to reach us are already displayed on the screen. However, I have a guest analyst in the studio, an officer of the British Empire, distinguished Alache Ode. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Afternoon.
Afternoon. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Spectacle today.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let's look, before we go into the analysis of today, the excerpt from the independence speech of President Muhammadu Buhari just this morning. And he went on to say, "Dear compatriots, 1st October each year is an opportunity for us to reflect and thank God for his endless blessings on our country. It is also a time for us collectively to remember the sacrifices made by our founders and great leaders past. Sacrifices made by soldiers, by distinguished public servants, by traditional leaders, by our workers, sacrifices on which Nigeria has been built over the 59 years since independence in 1960. And rededicate ourselves to attaining the goals which we have set for ourselves. A united, prosperous, and purposeful nation in the face of the 21st century opportunities and challenges. In the past 4 years, the majority of Nigerians have committed change for the better, committed to change for the better. Indeed, this administration was re-elected by the Nigerians on a mandate to deliver positive and enduring change through maintaining our national security, restoring sustainable and inclusive economic growth and development, and fighting corruption against all internal and external threats. This change can only be delivered if we are united in purpose as individuals and as a nation. We must all remain committed to achieving this positive and enduring change. As I stated 4 years ago, change does not just happen. We must change our lawless habits, our attitude to public office and public trust. Simply put, to bring about change, we must change ourselves by being law-abiding citizens. Now, this is just my excerpt from the speech of Mr. President yesterday. First of all, I will still tell you again, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
We are 59 years old.
Just 1 year younger than I am.
Okay, 1 year younger than you are.
Yes, yes.
You mean you are 60 already?
Yes, I was born 1959, a year to the independence.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yes.
Anyway, you are an officer of the British Empire, and not by birth per se, but by citizenship also.
No, I have multiple citizen. I was born in Ghana.
Okay.
So I could say I'm Ghanaian.
All right.
But my parents, both parents are Nigerian. I spent over 25 years in the UK.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about that.
Yes, that's nationality in terms of looking at citizenry.
Yes, exactly.
When you're looking at democratic development.
Okay. Nigeria at 59. What would you say Where are we and where would you think we are headed?
Dan, that's a very, very, very big question.
Because I know you can handle that.
Yes. The issue here we have to begin to look at is that at the time of independence, I don't know if there was a trajectory to where we are going to.
Okay.
So we cannot begin, as I'm a monitoring and evaluation expert, and we use a project timeline to look at how far we are achieving. In terms of looking at Nigeria, was there a game plan, an end to it? Perhaps the end was independence from the struggles of people like Awolowo and so on, and the anti-colonial struggle. Their project was, let us get independent. So they did achieve that as at 1960.
Yeah.
But post-1960, I don't know if there was a plan that was in place. You see, one of the challenges we have in terms of analyzing Nigeria's future, past, and so on is because we do not have a blueprint of which you have a comparison and say, have we achieved this or haven't we achieved this? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For instance, they started with parliamentary system of government after the colonialists. I use the word colonialist with strong emphasis.
Okay.
You know why I say so? I keep on seeing Nigerians 59 years later calling the colonialists colonial masters. Why are they still your masters? Don't ever say colonial masters. For God's sake, the professors who say colonial masters, they were just pure and simple colonialists.
Okay.
Don't use the word master. And that is what comes into your brain when you see a white man. Colonial master is a master. What I'm talking about now,
it gives an issue.
It gives an inferiority complex.
Yeah, issue of complex.
And that is why when a white man walks into the office, everybody stands up.
Exactly.
But when a black person enters and the black person is a highly erudite, intellectual person, yes, he's not respected until he says, do you know who I am? So these colonialists had a foundation for the Nigeria they will hand over to Nigerian indigenous politicians. Yeah. And that blueprint is built on the parliamentary system of government.
Good.
Which was operating in the United Kingdom and which still operates in the United Kingdom. Wow. And then they handed us a parliamentary system. The laws supports a parliamentary system. And then later on, we went into the military regimes and so on, who were really unprepared for the type of system. So what we have currently is a presidential system that is underpinned by a parliamentary system, a structure, and so on. We had, yes, the constitutional reviews and so on that brought about the presidential system. But we have never had a legal basis to look at the parliamentary structure that underpins a presidential system. And there lies the bane of the relationship between the state or the subnational structure and the national structure.
That's good.
If you look at the United Kingdom, for instance, which introduced the parliamentary system, which we experimented with, all right?
Yeah.
They do have they have subnationals like the Welsh Assembly, Northern Ireland, and Scottish, and so on. But the center is still super, super powerful, London. Yeah. When you hear of the parliamentary decisions on Brexit and all, it's about the discussions in London. It's not about the discussions in the subnational entities. But if you go to the United States presidential system, you hear California is pulling out, this is pulling. So we are operating a presidential system that is based on a structural orientation that is underpinned by a parliamentary system. And we have never, ever looked at that. How do the parliamentary and presidential system work together? The parliamentary system looks at a strong central and the others. Even within that parliamentary system, you can see that Wales, Scotland, and the rest have started fighting even against London. That's why you have the Welsh Parliament, you have the first Prime Minister of Scotland, and you have Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland, because they're tired of being grappled.
Exactly.
But we have a presidential system that still stands on the foot of a parliamentary system. So politically.
Politically, it means we've been heading nowhere.
You cannot plant orange trees and grow bananas.
Exactly.
So if you have a parliamentary system, you work within the parliamentary parameters.
Exactly.
If you decide you want a presidential system, you must go back not just to the Constitution, but to the laws that exist in our country and look at the legal framework, the constitutional framework, and then the political framework you want to embrace. And when you do that, it is inevitable that you will look at a list of success landmarks that you will measure yourself with.
Okay, people have been asking, we are practicing a federal system of democracy, and we are not practicing true federalism. Is it a foundational fault from the angle?
That is what I am
from?
saying.
Yeah.
That you do not have a federalism that is based on a presidential system.
Yeah.
And have it underpinned by a parliamentary system that weakens some of the structures around it and strengthens the center. We need to make a decision. Do we want a presidential system or do we want a parliamentary system? And let's go back to the drawback.
Which one is easier to practice?
It's not about ease, because America practices their own presidential very easily. And the parliamentary systems around the world practice their own very easily. But we must also, this is where the economics of our country comes into play.
Okay.
Afford a presidential system where every state has their legislators, the councils have their legislators, the central, and when you look at their budget, in comparison to the totality of the budget of Nigeria in terms of projects and proper executions, then we begin to say, well, which is easier for us? But, I don't want to be defeatist in my attitude to the Nigerian politics, but, the electorates are a bit, I don't know, apathetic. But in politics, in the study of democracy, there are several angles. You are either a participant, but within the non-participation, or you are a participant or a dissenter, which means you are an opposition. But within that framework, there are those who are apathetic. There's nothing I can do that can change the system. There are those who acquiesce. I will just follow the dominant factor. And there are those who are totally not related to the political process. So you find that even if the government today says, let's have a referendum, you will still feel the exclusion of a lot of Nigerians because of either acquiescence, apathy, dissent, or conformity.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, the issue of restructuring that people are clamoring for is not even the solution per se.
I don't know what they mean by restructuring, because there hasn't been a detailed document that has been exposed to Alache Ode as a document to look at restructuring. But if restructuring just means giving states powers to do what they have to do,
or
regions, I don't know. We used to have 3 regions, now we have 6 regions.
Exactly.
So I don't know what that means in terms of engaging with the restructuring agenda. But when we begin to look at restructuring, I think people should look at much more in depth than just giving power to the states and to the regions.
Okay.
Because experience has shown, I don't want to call states, there are several states that have had money and that have excluded their own people, what I would call political alienation. They have made their own people not to even matter. In fact, it has been the role of the federal government to come and intervene in some of these issues. So I don't know if we are cascading up the problem or cascading down the problem. We might be cascading down the problem. And that means what we don't like at the center might go to the states and then to the local governments. All I am concerned about is a situation where it is heavily looked at, debated, and the focus is pro-people.
Okay.
Not pro-elite.
Okay.
Pro-people.
Okay.
I don't care whether it's a presidential, it is a restructured, it is an autocracy, it is a monarchical system, provided it is pro-people. Because I don't want to engage in the semantics of debate.
Yes.
I want to focus on the outcome of that debate. And that's, for me, my clear agenda.
Exactly. All right. You are an expert in this field. And from what you've explained so far, I believe the Nigerian government and some authorities are listening to you. And we hope that they will, buy into this and as solutions to their many quagmires. Do you see the government of today compared to when we had independence as more of a problem than solutions?
I don't know if it is the government or you see, I used to lecture in the UK, and we had a lot of issues about looking at democracy. Wait, first of all, I started lecturing in global politics. Then I went into a course. We used to constitute ourselves as a course team, where they monitor how we lecture political science students. And then we went into democracy from classical times to present. What was democracy? What are the models of democracy that have what are the approaches and the theories in democracy? When we finished that, we went into what we call democratic governments and practices. And when we begin to look at different democratic practices and the different democratic governments, and to us it was very clear that unless you build towards a particular democratic model and you look at it in terms of a practical democratic practice, such that you want to work towards that, but bearing in mind that year in, year out, there are global issues that come to thwart or reshape your democratic menu. And so we look at that. I don't know if Nigeria has had a trajectory, like I said initially, and whether or not this current government is abiding with it, or this previous government had abided with it. It's a bit difficult for me to say, particularly that I really think if we must confess, our democratic idealism has progressed.
Okay.
But our democratic practice has not matched that idealism.
Okay, can you give 1 or 2 examples?
We all say we are a democracy, we all say we're this, but when you're going to election, people are bribing people, it's a money field rather than an idea field.
Exactly.
And so if you have more money than me, whether or not I want to come and engage with pro-poor policies, it's not your concern. You want your payback right now. Give me 200 naira and that is it. Okay. So for me, but when there are issues and you see these same political parties that pay money, they go to court. They are debating on political ideals, but their political practice is not democratic. Exactly. And so sometimes when I watch TV and say, "Oh, we've been cheated here, we've been cheated here," I say, "Good for you. If you had solidly adhered to the political democratic practice, backed by a democratic law that supports you, you will win my sympathy." Not when even your primaries involves money. Then you come to me later to get my sympathy. I said, well, the court too wants money, the political parties want money, primaries want money, the electorate want money. Deal with it. Deal with it.
In a situation like this, where everything has become the power of money, how do we get out of it? Which system can correct this now?
It's not about systems. Systems must be backed by ideas.
Okay.
For me, maybe I should look at the whole ambit of the independence. We've been engaging on the political independence, but I have an issue with even our mental independence.
Okay.
And that is where the challenge comes from.
Okay.
If you have a mentality, whether it is democracy, autocracy, or whatever, that is pro your country, based on patriotism, based on how you work with, how you push an agenda for the people. I think that works well, but our mentality is still so poor. I'll give an example. I used to be the boss in a particular organization when I was overseas and coming into Nigeria. And there was somebody else who was really less than me. But immediately we get to any Nigerian ministry, but because the person was white, they will run to carry his bag. Then when we enter, they will put him in my seat. It's when the minister or the big man in that ministry comes up and says, "Where's the team leader?" And I say, "I'm the one." That's when they go to look for another chair for me. And I used to say to them, "Look at this." But I am the one that understands the context. Because that white man would never give a tip. Then when we are going, that's when they say, "Madam, madam." And I'm like, get out of my sight. But what I'm saying is that our mentality is so skewed. I made mention of this colonial master, which they always even still teach in the university to call them, instead of colonialists, they call them colonial masters. Secondly, that's the social aspect where we reorientate our values and begin to say, who are we? One of the things I want to mention about this mental orientation in relation to social orientation. There's I've seen some media personalities talking about integration as a panacea for some of our challenges. And I say to myself, integration into what? Have we got a national identity that we integrate into? We had this discussion because I happen to have been working with Professor Held as part of his lecturing team.
Okay.
And we had a very serious discussion during Tony Blair. Should we look at integration, multiculturalism, or interculturalism? We've never had that debate in Nigeria.
Of course.
What am I integrating to? To integrate means you bring your own good and you look at a national good and you fixate yourself in that. Do we have a national identity that is defined?
No.
Multiculturalism means bring your culture, we respect it, we do with it, bring your religion and everything, and we deal with it. So we have all those things that we need to begin to interrogate, not just go straight to appoint some old people to come and talk restructuring. They don't know about, there was nothing about technology in that restructuring. It's about old ideas, some people as old as myself. Where are the young people who contributed? They don't care where you come from or your religion. They are connected by technology. Where are they? We are talking of structural adjustment. Some people are just talking so that their children, grandchildren will continue to lord it over other people in their enclaves. Where are the young people in the discussion of integration or multiculturalism or interculturalism? These debates we must have before we up it into structural reforms.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll give you two last more questions, and I want you to help us to deal with that very situation. The current administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, thus far, how would you score him? And what prospect also are you still expecting from him?
You see, as I told you before, I'm a monitoring and evaluation person, and in order to score somebody, I've got to see his scorecard. Okay. I believe, if I am correct, please everybody correct me if I'm wrong, he came on some parameters into government: security,
corruption,
anti-corruption, and agriculture. And I think those were the three high points. Yes. But he will continue to do that. On security, it's been up and down. We had a situation where Boko Haram was being downed. But then we had an increase in kidnappers and increase in banditry. Okay. I don't know the distinction between banditry and those Boko Haram. The reason why I say so, I've done a personal analysis. Okay. And I saw that the more you close the formal channels of Boko Haram getting money, the more the informal channels open. Okay. So you will see bandits who may be displaced Boko Haram collecting cash to directly, because all the bank channels are being closed. The formal channels of transferring money, money laundering is being closed. So I don't know if the security officials have looked at that. Okay. So if they look at that and begin to have a new approach to security, maybe the score will be higher. I would not give A to Z because in terms of agriculture, I think, to be fair, there has been quite a lot that has been done and support given. The only problem I have is I don't know if it is the response to the support. A lot of people are not ready to embrace mechanized farming. The reason being our system, if a farm 60 hectares, when the owner dies, he probably divides the 60 hectares by 10 children. So it becomes 6 hectares. Exactly. The 6 hectares become 2 hectares as time goes by. And then some people within those 60 hectares start constructing houses, selling it for commercial purposes. So we have an issue around our value for land and what we need to do with land. And this land issue is very important in terms of agriculture, in terms of infrastructure. Because let me tell you, in the UK, you dare not dig a borehole in your land. Because they said to you that if you dig, you are going to go to the underground water, which is a resource, and take it off. So what it is that they will have water for the next 30 years, provided the provision is through government. But when you go to the base of the water, if there is a war in Nigeria that captures us, we cannot get water for 10 years. So we need to look at water as a very important thing. Then, when you look at anti-corruption, initially, the viewpoint was that they were only attacking opposition. But of recent, we have seen Eyo Ita. We have seen so many people who are embedded in Buhari's government being arraigned. And so there is a kind of escalation towards the positive. I don't know. Maybe things might change in the next future or not. I don't know.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, the program is an audience participatory one. And if you have anything to say in the next 5 minutes, you can call us in and contribute your quota using the numbers displayed on your screen. And while we wait for a call, we have 5 minutes to go. I would like to ask you this question in terms of Nigerian infrastructural development, the stage at which we are now. What would you advise state and local government right now to do?
To be honest, I was part of the contributors to two plans, three plans, Division 2020-2020. I was also part of the contributors to NIIMP, Nigeria's Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan, as well as this Economic Recovery Growth Plan. The Nigerian Infrastructure Master Plan is started quite a while ago and articulated the interconnectedness and the necessary projects for infrastructure projects, which is a very good master plan. If you will remember that shortly before the election, this year's election, that the president had to put off the budget for the infrastructure.
Let's take this call. Sorry. I think we missed the call.
Had to put off that budget for electioning purposes. You see, if you look at the indicators, we are very low in terms of infrastructure, particularly power. That has been the main. Roads, because we are always complaining on the federal roads. Nobody is going to interrogate the central roads, the state roads, and the local government roads. Those ones are also a problem. We have issue of water. We have issue of even housing. Recently, they said we have about some hundreds of millions deficit in housing. And it's because people are building houses in the urban centers. They are not looking at, I'm not saying if you want to build in Abuja, don't build in Lokogoma, don't build in Maitama and Asokoro. What I'm saying is that go and build in the peri-urban. That is the area where you have mass housing deficits. Go to Nyanya, go to Karumo, go to, Mararaba. No, Mararaba, if you are talking of Federal Capital Territory, Mararaba, but if you are talking of Federal Ministry of Housing, then Mararaba applies. So what we are saying is, nobody has looked at it. When I was in Mongolia, I had to work with urban, peri-urban, and rural. But Nigeria works with urban and rural infrastructure. They do not look at peri-urban. The peri-urbans are the urban areas that are around the periphery of the rich.
Let's pick this call from I don't know. We'll listen to his contribution. I think he still went off again. Anyway, I can see he's trying to reach us to contribute, or probably. Well, but we're out of time now.
Oh dear.
We're out of time now, and Alache Ode has been with us on Spectacle today. The officer of the British Empire herself, and she has explicitly and vividly put it forth to us at 59. Is our 59th independent, and I believe she has performed credibly okay today for the Nigerian government to learn, state governors to also to borrow a little from her analysis and put into practice where we want to go from here. A 59 years human being is not an ordinary human being that should be crawling, rather should be running. And happy anniversary once again. We won't have much to say. Nigeria at 59, we expect more. We have achieved a lot, and all hands must be on deck to do what to drive this country forward and for us to be truly independent. Economically, we must be independent. Socially, we must be independent. Financially, even privately, we must be independent. Morally, we must be independent. The issue of this complexity factor inferiority complex must stop. We must look inward into our country, like she has said, and then develop a blueprint of where we are moving to. We must have a projectile, like she talked about, trajectory, blueprint, where we are headed, where we are coming from, and where we are going. At the end, we must evaluate ourselves with a scorecard to know whether we are making movement as a nation. This is where we stop today on Spectacle. I remain your host, Daniel Atai, and thank you for watching.